Hi, welcome. Today is the final in our series with the Type Guide, where we are going to talk about the menopause phase of the menstrual cycle. I am just waiting for Evie to join, and then she will come in and we will get started. I know we have been really excited about bringing all of this to you, and I am excited to learn more. Oh, here she is. Hopefully we have no issues today. I'm going to accept, like many times when we do this, we have some issues with the technology working. So I'm hoping today, oh yay, no issues at all today. That is wonderful. I think the last 3 or 4, we've had a little bit of hiccup.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
With it. I can see you today. You can see me. It
You.
worked right away. Woo! I am really excited about that. Evie and I are really excited to be here again today. This is actually the final one in our series on the menstrual cycle, where we're going to talk about the menopause phase. To start, I thought we would go through, a lot of you probably already have met us and know us, but there might be some new people on today as well. And so I thought we would go through and just introduce ourselves quickly, and then get right into it. So my name is Lindsay Frazier. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, as well as a certified sex therapist, an IA accredited professional, where I have a small private practice in South Minneapolis, where I specialize in relationships and sexuality. Why don't you go ahead and introduce? Oh, I always forget to say my every time. I am an Enneagram Type 9, wing of 1, who has social in the dominant position and the sexual instinct in the repressed. Evie, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Totally. Thank you, Lindsay. And yeah, so great to be here. I am Evie. For those of you who I've not met before, you can find me at the Type Guide here on Instagram. And I am a menstrual cycle coach who uses the Enneagram to help us debunk the myths of our body. I'm so excited to be having this conversation about the menopause, today with you, Lindsay. Oh, I've just done that as well. I'm a type 1, wing 2, with sexual dominant and self-pres in the blind subtype position. And yeah, I'm thrilled to be having this conversation about the menopause. We obviously spoke about the perimenopause last week. So if you are in the perimenopause, or you love somebody who is in the perimenopause, definitely go back and watch that video. But it feels like a really exciting conversation that we've got planned today, Lindsay. So I'm really excited to be having this conversation with you.
I am as well. And if some of you don't know and you're new to Evie and I as well, we did, in, I think it was September, October, we did also talk about just the menstrual cycle, and all 4 phases of that as well. So if anybody is like, hey, I really want to know more about that, you can DM me, you can DM Evie, we can send you those so that you can watch them at any point in time. But today is sort of the last phase of that cycle. And Evie, why don't you talk a little bit about exactly what the menopause cycle or phase, because it's a phase, not a cycle, because once you're in menopause, it's done. But talk a little bit about what that is.
Yeah, for sure. So scientifically speaking, menopause signifies the final period, and kind of, the year after that. And what it signifies is that the body has kind of finished ovulating. You've ovulated for the last time. And we know that, a period, a bleed is, kind of the byproduct of being fertile and ovulating that 2 weeks before. And so, this is just, the female body coming to the end of their fertile time, not to the end of their life, but just the end of being fertile. And so, when we're talking about perimenopause, that can, as we spoke about last week, that can happen, as early as 35 even, but around, the 45, to 50 year mark, and that can last for up to 10 years. And then we have menopause, which just signifies the final time that we ovulate, the final time that we bleed, and kind of the year after that. And so we have, yeah, a lot of those physical symptoms, those mental health symptoms that we've talked about last week. They can persist into the menopausal years and that time. And so that can be things like hot flushes, but it can also be things like cold flushes, which don't get as much airtime, but are still part of the menopause experience. They're things like brain fog, memory issues, things like, cardiovascular issues, heart arrhythmia. We see things like vaginal dryness and the thinning of the vaginal walls. And so, it's a full body experience. It's not a disease or an issue, but both physical and mental health issues can come about if we maybe are not taking care of our bodies in the right way. And we absolutely can expect to maybe ask for support during this time, because the world runs on a 24-hour cycle rather than a 28-day cycle. It runs, kind of on that very male hormonal cycle. The days of the week, just everything about our world and our life, and actually trying to manage a menstrual cycle or manage the perimenopause or the menopause in and amongst that can be really tricky, really difficult, because the world is not set up for supporting us with that. And so asking for support, going on HRT, not going on HRT, these are all decisions that are totally your right to make. And I'm not pro or against anything, but I am really pro people having all the information so that they can make the best decision for them. And not just dealing with it quietly because it feels like a taboo or it feels shameful. And so when one of my favorite quotes that I love to kind of come back to time and time again when I'm doing my work, it's a Native American saying. It says, at Menarche, a girl meets her power through her menstruation. She practices her power. She practices her power during menstruation, and at menopause, she becomes her power. And I think that's, really powerful. But I think it really sets the scene for what menopause can be. I've just mentioned, some of the pitfalls, the downfalls, the stresses of the physicality, the mental health side of menopause. But I also truly believe that it is a really powerful and magical time to really step into all of who you are, the sum of your life up until this point, to propel you forward into the next 20, 30, 40 years. We call the menopause second spring, and I really believe it is just that. It's an awakening. It's waking up to this power that lives within you. And sometimes as female bodies, as women, we can forget our power. We can have our power diminished. And I really believe that the menopause can be a time of reclamation. And I feel really excited about that. If you can't tell.
I was going to say, I think it's really interesting when you say, because it's like, I don't know, not all of us get information around exactly what the symptoms look like. So I have even seen people that start to have some of the brain fog, maybe some of the memory issues, start to question like, oh my gosh, is like something else wrong with me? When in reality, it might just be the shifting of the hormones that are happening, occurring. And I've had clients that have had none of these symptoms. Like we talked about last time, right? Is it's common but not normal to have these types of symptoms. But I think the biggest thing, and I think it's so important to talk about this, is like you don't have to suffer through it, and you may or may not get symptoms, and there are a wide variety of options, and making sure that you really are talking to your doctors or working with an acupuncturist and not being afraid to, like I always tell clients, like you are the consumer of services, right? When you are choosing a doctor or an acupuncturist, you're not getting the things that you need or the answers that you want. Like you have the right to choose somebody else and to try something else. I say that for myself too, because for a long time I thought you didn't have, like, well, this is the doctor I have, and this is what they say, that's how it is. And what I'll say is a lot of it's really interesting to me because a lot of OBGYNs, like we've talked about before, like they don't have the knowledge or the expertise in this particular area. And so sometimes you might have someone that doesn't know all the answers. And of course, there's lots of different areas that doctors have to specialize in, but there are more and more doctors specializing in this particular area. And so you may or may not have symptoms. And I think it's just good to know that both of those things can exist.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think I'm just thinking of just the UK audience because, yeah, because of our medical model, there often isn't that much choice available on the wonderful NHS, who I love. But I'm just thinking of, yes, a specific GP who, yeah, really specializes in the menopause, who has a fantastic Instagram account, who I'm going to tag at the end of this, just so people in the UK, yeah, if you're wanting, yeah, really specific answers about, yeah, HRT or different things that are available through the NHS rather than going private, I'm just gonna, yeah, tag her below because she might be really helpful for you, but especially with acupuncturists, with yeah, you know, when you're, yeah, choosing a healthcare provider, making sure that you feel, for, you know, this is for, you know, for anything really, but especially, you know, our reproductive health, our very intimate health, we really want to pick somebody that, yeah, we feel really seen and safe with. And yeah, if you are feeling dismissed, if you're feeling ignored, if you're feeling kind of how the world you know, treats menopausal people, if that's, you know, happening in the room with your doctor, with your GP, with your acupuncturist, yeah, know your rights, see what changes you can make, and you know, be empowered to make them, because you deserve, yeah, the absolute best care. You deserve to take exquisite care of yourself. We all do, and so yeah, I will tag that wonderful lady below. But it's such a great point, Lindsay, to make sure that, yeah, we are getting the support that we require. And that really does start with yeah, being empowered with the knowledge, so that we know what decisions we can make. And yeah, I think just to your point about, yes, some people don't get any symptoms. I think, you know, I liken it to, yeah, people's experience of the menstrual cycle or of being pregnant. Some people, yeah, I really struggle with morning sickness. Some people don't get it at all. And you know, we obviously have not spent enough money researching female health, and hopefully that will change in the future. But you know, until then, if you've got friends that are or aren't having big symptoms, do make sure that, yeah, don't count yourself out because of what you're experiencing might be different. You know, you gift yourself the time it takes to maybe learn about, yeah, the shoulder pain that can be caused hormonally for a lot of menopausal women. I think that's huge to know, and hugely helpful when we think about going to the PT or the gym. Knowing that, yeah, an issue is hormonal rather than just physical is going to change how we, yeah, engage with that issue that we might be struggling with. And that's going to absolutely, yeah, maybe transform yeah, the rest of that perimenopausal time, menopausal time, or even postmenopausal time as well. Yeah, totally.
It's really interesting because I forget, right? Because I'm in the United States, like we have a lot more choice around medical providers, but there probably are people on here as well that are in countries where it's more socialized medicine, and you might not get as much option. But I like what you're saying, and I have to remember that because I know some people on here, but like in the United States, you know, we pay a lot for our medical care and we get more options. And if you're here in the United States, shop around. If you're in countries like the UK or other countries in Europe, like you're saying, Evie, like just that importance of like educating yourself so you can advocate and assert, even if you don't get as a whole lot of say in maybe the medical provider that you have. And so thank you for saying that, because I do forget that because we have so many options here in the US. We pay for it, but we get lots of options.
Yeah, totally. And I think if you're listening to this and that is maybe ringing true, that actually you have felt, yeah, dismissed, and yeah, you've really struggled with healthcare, please go to my blog and read my story in full, because that's very much, yeah, my story. I was very unwell in my late teens and early 20s. I was unwell for a long time, and that, yeah, really came from being ignored by doctors, particularly because I was a young girl. And my story is not unique, and it's not a one-off, and it's not particularly special. There are lots of people who, yeah, have lost years of their life because of being ignored by doctors. And yeah, if you relate to that at all, head over to my blog and or reach out to me on DM, because that's a conversation that I love to have and I don't shy away from having, and can say all of that and still absolutely love the NHS. So it's always a both and, but I love to have the conversation. So I'm always here to have that conversation if anybody is needing to feel seen or heard, with regard to that. And I think actually, if you are in the UK, you'll have seen the news over the last 2, 3, 4, 5 years, especially with regard to HRT and how difficult it's been to get HRT, and a lot of women and people using HRT finding out the day that they're meant to be picking up their prescription that they do not have access to their prescription, and they don't know when they'll be getting the access to their prescription back in, and then they just have to go to work for the next 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks. It's atrocious, and it's really difficult. And if that's your story, I really see you and honor you in that, because it's not an easy one. And I know from clients that I've been working with over the last year just how difficult that has been. And I don't have any answers that we need to demand for change, but I do really see you and I honor you in that, and I honor how hard maybe that journey has been recently, for sure. And then I just was thinking whilst we were talking as well, just we've talked about brain fog and memory issues, but also the mental health side effects that can come with perimenopause and menopause, both physically, hormonally, and just the effect of maybe dealing with a number of different physical symptoms. And I also just really want to hold space for that as well. That is a really tough place to be, and if you don't have, I truly believe that we should always have a counsellor that we're seeing. I think trying to do life without a therapist, a counsellor, I think it makes life harder. And so if you're coming up to that perimenopausal time, why not, don't wait until you need a therapist, don't wait until you need a counsellor, but make sure that you kind of have somebody that you know and you trust backing you in your corner. So as you enter this time, you have that support system in place. And not everybody can, but if you can, I would really suggest just having that support system in place already, because that could really transform what these next 5, 10, 15 years look like. But this has really turned into me on my soapbox.
I mean, I was just going to say, I completely agree with you. And of course, I'm going to be a little bit biased. I think most of us can benefit from a therapeutic process, but especially during this period of your life, because when we talk about the hormones, yes, you might be more emotional, but the reality is the emotions that you are feeling are valid. Almost like we talked, we're going to talk a little bit about the positives too. What a gift. No longer am I going to tolerate things that are not okay with me. And these hormones sort of actually push us into that ability. And I've had clients say oh, I feel quote unquote crazy. And I'll say, your emotions are still giving you information. There is still something here to look at, something that is not okay in your environment. Things that maybe you've tolerated from, friends or a spouse, or things that have always maybe not been okay for you, but no longer can you push it down or ignore it, especially for your withdrawal types, right? Which we know we're going to talk a little bit more about the stances and things like that as well. But it can be take that. it is valid information. You may have more intensity around the emotion than you have before, but it is not an invalid emotion. And usually the thing that you are reacting to is something you need to look at more closely. And I think having that therapist on the journey with you, like you said, right? It's that you are becoming your power. I loved this phrase when I saw this, when you found this and when you brought this, because it's so true, right? Like we do come into our power as women in our 40s and beyond, right? We don't care as much what people think. And like, what a beautiful thing to like be able to like fully embody ourselves. A lot of us give up the good girl image. We don't have to be that anymore. We don't have to be the people pleaser. And so I just think that there's a lot of like gifts, and I'd love to hear some of the other gifts that you have seen that come with menopause, and I will happily share some of the things that like I have noticed as well. So what are some of the gifts that come with
Yeah.
menopause that you
Yeah.
see?
Yeah, of course. And yeah, you said it so perfectly there. This kind of releasing of the good girl image, releasing of the people pleasing. And I think that's true of all types. I think if we've been socialized as girls and women, that people pleasing is there, whatever your Enneagram type, and it's going to come through in different ways. But the releasing of that, the letting go of that, and then the expansion into who you are as a powerful person and not needing to stand behind anyone or anything, but knowing that you are valid, you are, here right now, you are taking up space, has been, such a powerful, version that of people that I've had the real privilege to witness. And yeah, I mean, maybe we just jump into stance work now, actually, using the Enneagram there. We're just going to talk through, the different stances and how that, really shows up. But and we were just talking actually about the withdrawing types. I think, fours, fives, and nines. I feel like perimenopause for fours, fives, and nines, especially if they're symptomatic, especially if there are lots of different, especially physical symptoms going on, that can be really overwhelming for the withdrawing stance. And I think once we come through that and we, enter into menopause, there is this serene calm that comes with fours, fives, and nines that I find incredibly powerful and incredibly beautiful. And it's there's the archetype of the crone that people might have used before, which kind of really speaks to being, a wise, kind of a wise sage. And I think, fours, fives, and nines really embody that in a really special and powerful way. They're not ever going to be the loudest people in the room, and yet this calmness speaks so loudly and holds space in such a beautiful, serene way. I just think it's one of my favorite things to witness, especially as fours, fives, and nines become accustomed to that, become accustomed to that power, that when they enter a room, they're kind of they're without having to be loud, without feeling the need to be chatty, especially if they're not, especially if we're self-pres and subtype, we're able to just be present and witnessed to in this power. I think is absolutely incredible. And I'm talking, and it's sounding a little poetic, and it's I am talking on a very good day, of course, when we're in the menopause, and of course post menopause, we're going to have days where we don't feel like that, absolutely, of course. But if we're looking at the positives and we're looking at what the menopause can provide, I think for the withdrawing stance types, excuse me, that's something really to be captivated by and to notice. And sometimes with withdrawing stance as well, it's really difficult to pay you guys a compliment. And actually that is a compliment that you might need to get used to and maybe look out for, because I think the impact of that on those around you, on your family, on the people that you work with, on the people that you're in community with, is really powerful, and it's so necessary. And I say that here at this point because often women and people that go through the menopause are told that they are not necessary anymore. You're past your fertile years, we're not interested in, you know, old women as a society, as a world. You don't really offer us anything more. You can't make babies for us. And you're not, you know, conventionally attractive. You don't look like you're 21 years old. And that is just not true. It's not true on any level. And actually the wisdom that, yeah, the withdrawing stance provides when they find that power and hold on to that power, I think is a really beautiful thing for literally everybody else in the room. Lindsay, you are in the withdrawing stance. I wonder, yeah, could you speak to maybe, yeah, your experience of, yeah, being on the journey of finding your power within that, within your stance?
I think it's interesting as so I'm in my mid 40s. I'm 45 if people are curious and want to know. So I haven't gone through menopause yet. And, as far as like my cycles and systems, everything is normal at this point. So I don't even know necessarily if I am in perimenopause yet. But one of the things that I have noticed for me, and I think like one of the things with being a 9, right, is the ability to have more presence and to be able to be more present in your life and more assertive and more direct. And as I have come into my 40s, it's like a lot of the work that I need to do as being a 9 is coming to fruition. And so it's very interesting when people have met me at this point in my life versus the person that I may have been in my 20s. Sometimes I don't look like a 9 anymore, according to what people think 9s should look like. And the reality is a lot of it has been that I'm doing my work and I have more presence and I'm significantly more assertive than I ever used to be. I used to be before, and this started to happen probably in my mid to late 30s, that I really started to sort of transition and move, which really kind of fits with these phases that we're talking about as well. Before, I would be the person at a social event who would be on the periphery. I would listen, I would know what was going on. People had the tendency to tell me all their stuff, as I said, because I had that empathetic thing. But it was a lot of like molding and mending and making myself sort of into like what people around me kind of wanted me to be. And just hoping I wouldn't get noticed, but wanting to get noticed, which is very 9-ish. And so it's like, now I'm like letting myself step in and like I can be seen and I can be in the spotlight sometimes, though I'm extremely uncomfortable every time I'm there still today. But I feel like if we're doing our work the way that we need to be, the higher qualities or the higher self presents itself at this point in time for you. That you get to see all the gifts that the Enneagram Type has. Now, if we aren't doing our work, this is where sort of like you're going to have some pretty significant like signs of like you got to do your work. Like this is where we have the classic midlife crisis and things like that, which men have too, by the way. It's sort of that reflection of midlife. But it is just very interesting because I see both. I see people that this is the happiest, most content, most comfortable, most confident point in their life. And then I see people where it's like there's like this reevaluation and recognition of like, am I living my life the way that I want? To me, both are such gifts to have, even if you are in either place. Because one is like it's your opportunity, like this is your final wake up, or it's sort of like you're doing your work and here's what's becoming because you have. And so that's kind of what my experience has been. My 40s have been the happiest decade of my life, which as a 20-year-old, I never ever thought could be possible. I always thought, I was telling you, people after 50 don't have sex. That is actually what I believed as a young 20-something. And we know that that is not true. That people continue to want to be sexual beings throughout their full life.
Yeah. Yeah, and how beautiful is that? How exciting is that life doesn't end after you turn 30, which again is kind of the messaging from, the films and social media, that it's just, this steady climb and then decline, once you hit your 30th birthday. And I just think, as women, we've been sold this story and we're kind of, shoehorned into to upholding it, that, you know, when we do hit 40, when we hit 45, when we hit 50, we, you know, dress, you know, more modestly, and we, you know, start to, you know, turn down the engines, and we, you know, we don't wear a bright red lip, you know, because that would be garish, and you're wanting the attention, and actually you don't deserve the attention anymore. You're not fertile. We don't want you anymore. And actually, how exciting to absolutely flip that narrative, to, you know, recognize your power and be stepping into it, for our 40s to be the happiest decade, and then get to our 50s and our 50s be the happiest decade, and then get to our 60s and our 60s be the happiest decade, and for this, you know, continual, yeah, enjoyment of life, rather than just this kind of sad stigmatized, you know, experience where we kind of want women to live, you know, in that dependent stance way of being everything to everybody else and ignoring their own needs, which does kind of bring us on to the compliance stance there, the dependent stance, which is our 1s, 2s and 6s, which is the stance that I am in as a type 1, wing 2. And I think, you know, when we look at the menopause, you know, for this group of women, you know, Lindsay, it really speaks to, are you doing your work or not? Because I think, I'm going to say something and people might not agree, but I think a lot of people that, you know, a lot of people in this stance are perhaps not leaving enough time to do their work because they're so busy doing everybody else's work. And I say that with a whole lot of respect, and obviously saying it to myself. But when you know, walk into a room and immediately assess the needs of everybody else before your own, you can get lost there. You can, and then if you especially are, you know, having a family, starting a family, and you know, caring for a growing family, you can get lost there for years and years and years. And so I think, yeah, when we're trying to reclaim our power and find our power, you know, amongst perimenopause and then, yeah, into menopause and beyond, I think, yeah, we really have to take a hard look in the mirror there, compliance stance, and make sure that we are owning our work and not, yeah, hiding behind anybody else's stuff that maybe needs some work doing. And I put my hand up as a type 1 and know that that's a great trick that, you know, I, you know, can absolutely do if we're getting it right. If we are doing our work, gosh, we see these 1s, 2s and 6s take themselves seriously, take themselves very seriously, and focus on themselves maybe for the first time in a long time. And that's incredibly powerful to be around. We watch that good girl persona melt off, sometimes have to burn off the 1s, 2s and 6s. I think it can be a bit of a baptism of fire, perimenopause and menopause, because we are at this juncture of, okay, wake up, let's live, let's actually live, let's stop living for other people. And so it's a really powerful time, but I think it can be, yeah, maybe it maybe feels less serene and less calm that we kind of see with the withdrawing stance, where we kind of carry that presence into every room, and it can sometimes feel more like a shake or a shimmy or a dance into that freedom and that power that we're talking about. Does that make sense there, Lindsay? What I'm talking about there? I'm just realizing how much myself.
No, definitely it does. And I think that what I see with 1, 2s and 6s during this phase, like, it's like a lot of like internal struggle of like, you know, this is what I should be, wanting to be compliant, but then part of them not wanting to be. And so having this little bit of like internal struggle back and forth, and really having to like push through to the other side, that like, I don't have to be compliant to get my needs met, that I don't have to show up in this way, that it is okay to slow down. I need more rest. Your body is going to demand that of you. And I think it's just been a really interesting thing to observe with the compliance stance in my office. Wow. Yeah. Well, let's hear about the assertive stance. What do we see with them, Evie?
Totally. Wow, our 3s, 7s and 8s. You know, 3s, 7s and 8s have, you know, the greatest capacity for energy out of everybody on within the Enneagram. And so whilst we do see, you know, diminished energy, you know, physically, you know, across the board with menopause, we're seeing 3s, sevens and eights, you know, launch, you know, a new career, often in their 60s. We see them running marathons. We see them, you know, living out these big dreams. And I think that that's so exciting. And I think, yes, there is that accessibility there, because 3 sevens and 8s have that higher level of energy with being in the assertive stance. And that's really, really exciting, and also difficult if your physical symptoms are exhausting. And so how do we balance that table is something that I see a lot with the assertive stance in this time frame. And you know, once we're kind of post menopause and kind of found our footing a little bit with this kind of new phase, I think it's a very kind of explosive, you know, experiential time for 3 sevens and 8s, who kind of, you know, okay, we're here, this is second spring, it's go time, let's get outside and smell those flowers that are blooming to go with the metaphor there, which is really exciting. We have to remember, as 3 sevens and 8s in this period, to take the people that we love with us because, you know, we can run really fast, and this kind of, it can feel a little bit like, you know, the ovulatory phase within the menstrual phase, where 3 sevens and 8s kind of just go. And I think that really speaks to, because of, you know, the assertive stance being time tethered to the future, when there is you know, less future available, that wake up call feels you know, serious each day and every day, when there's, you know, kind of less film on the reel, on the camera reel. Then, you know, we want to make the most of every day. And so the reminder would be to take everybody that you love with you. Don't go alone. And how can you create space, create time for maybe that slowness that physically you might need, even if, you know, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, you're running at 100 miles an hour. I think is just so important to consider for the assertive stance.
It's interesting when you said that, because I was like, oh, you're right. All of it is my 3 sevens and 8s that are starting a new career at 50 or 60. and not so much your withdrawal types, by the way.
Yeah.
It's so funny. Somebody asked me, I was like, how did you ever start a private practice? Like, I was miserable enough in what I was doing to push myself to do something else.
Totally, yeah.
Because, you know, it does take a little bit of pushing to do what I'm doing. But it's just very interesting. And you're right? Because, like, sometimes their male partners are like, what are you doing? Like, isn't this a time to slow down in life? And even if you have, you know, a same-sex partner saying the same question, like, you might have a partner of a different Enneagram type that's like, wants to slow down and have more like slowness and presence. And like, I'm just thinking, like, you know, if you had a 3 and 9 in a relationship, your 9 is going to be like, what are you doing? It's a time to slow down and have more presence and enjoy, right? And just that ability to kind of, like, again, I mean, to me, what is like balance comes up, like having that balance and including the people that are important to you in your life and the decisions you're making, especially your partners, but like even like you have adult children or siblings or other people that want to be on the journey of life with you. Sometimes I do see 3 sevens and 8s just like leave them in the dust behind.
Yeah.
And they're like, where'd you go? And why didn't you take me with you?
Totally. And that energy is so special. You know, if we can harness that energy in a really, thoughtful way, finding feelings and kind of bringing them along with us. We remember and then get to bring those people with us. But taking pause to find the feelings, to remember that, oh yeah, actually, I prefer life when all the people that I love are doing it with me. I think is, you know, so key. And you know, we've not really talked about the repressed centers for the stances. Because we are, you know, often, I'm just looking at the time now, I'm realizing we can talk
all day.
But I think, you know, the menopause really provides a moment to be aware of those repressed centers and really do the work. You know, if you are thinking repressed, the time that is afforded to you often in the life stage you're in when you experience menopause gives you that ability to maybe do that work with a therapist. Or you know, if you know, slower to getting started on projects, if you are doing repressed, if you're a 459, this, you know, you've got the time to play and try again, and you know, if you're in that assertive stance, to find your feelings, and make use of them, express them. So that was just a very small, you know, moment there on the repressed centers, but I think just a really key moment to dig into them and find that balance, bring that balance to the three centers of intelligence, and offer that to yourself, to experience a richer, fuller life always. But let's keep going, and talk about relationship dynamics and how this might be impacting our intimacy and our sex. Lindsay, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, I could kick us off on that. I mean, I you know, one of the things that happens, which we talked a little bit last time around this period of time, is just kind of the functioning of the body, right? So during menopause phase, you know, some women, well, actually all women are going to probably have a little bit of thinning of the vaginal walls, maybe more difficulty with lubrication. It might take longer to orgasm, and these types of things. You're not going to have your hormones anymore sort of like encouraging the pleasure sensations, right? It doesn't mean that they still don't exist, but I think like one of the things that I had talked about in the last one is like how important it is to talk about sexuality, because sometimes intercourse may or may not be an option, depending on the woman or even the man, because like we talked about last time, for men, sort of after they hit the age of 40, they start to have some erection difficulties and not being able to maintain an erection that they want. And so sometimes it's even more difficult for them, or even the firmness of the erection might not be as firm as it once was. And so we just have bodies that don't necessarily function maybe the ways that we want. And so what I do see is like if intercourse is still an option, sometimes it becomes much more planful. I don't know if I had mentioned last time or not, but I had had a couple that it was in their mid-70s at the time when they were seeing me, and they were still having intercourse, and they still loved having that ability to have that kind of sexual intimacy in their relationship, but it was much more of like once a month, sort of a planned thing, right? Where lubrications were needed, and it had to go slower, and he needed help and assistance with erection and things like this. And so it doesn't mean that intercourse is off the table. It just might mean it takes more planning. And you're going to have to work on other types of intimacy to kind of foster more of the sexual intimacy. So just being able to have conversations around the different dimensions of touch. I had done a post not that long ago, actually, on the 5 dimensions of touch. And so if anybody needs that or wants me to send that to them, I can definitely send you a link to that. Actually, I did the other day for someone that actually was asking some questions. And so I like getting DMs. Don't hesitate to do that. If it ever moves into like a therapy avenue, I always tell you, like, this is more of a therapy avenue. Find a sex therapist in your city, or come and see me if you're in Minnesota. But just that, like, sometimes what happens is like we might be, erotic touch might be more of the end game. It might be more manual and oral stimulation as the way to reach orgasm or have pleasure, or maybe it's like more sensual touch, and it's just different types of sexuality. And I think that, you know, sex is all encompassing, and so many of us put like that the intercourse is the thing, but it's not. I mean, it's all the things that we do, our sexual energy, and create sexual intimacy. It's the things that we wouldn't do with our friends that are still what I will say sexuality. And so really having that ability to, again, talk about it is what I will say. And it was interesting because I was telling Evie before this that, like, before I was a therapist, I was a social worker. And one of the things that was happening at the time is that in the nursing facilities, we were having an epidemic of sexually transmitted diseases, because some of the pleasures of going through menopause is we don't need, we can't get pregnant anymore, but we can still get STDs. And so it was really interesting to me. And like, and I remember, like, I say, like, sex is, it's like, it's not. Our seniors are having sex. Our seniors still want to enjoy sexuality, and we need to think of sexuality as the full lifespan, and like what that looks like and what that is. And remember, if you are sexual, STDs still exist. You still have to be make sure the people you're being sexual with have gotten their testing and all of those types of things to protect your sexual health. Because sometimes people of after they've gone through menopause don't think about that stuff as much, but it's still there. I mean, and it was really interesting to see that that was an issue or concern for our senior citizens at the time, which I'm sure it still is, because I've been in practice now for 12 years. So this is about 15 years ago or 16 years ago that I was doing case management. So, that is the thing. Sex continues to happen and occur. Anything you want to add that you noticed with your clients or things that come up around relationships and sexuality, Evie?
Yeah, I think for me, what I've really seen is, the taboo and shame really playing out. I work primarily with women, and actually the shame of still desiring and wanting intimacy and sex, through perimenopause and menopause and beyond, is something that it breaks my heart to think that is where so many of us are kind of living out of this place of shame and feeling like it's such a taboo to want to carry on being intimate and physical and sexual with the people that we love. And actually, just before we were just talking specifically about different types, and I was just noting that a few of the type 4 women that I work with who are in the menopause, type 4s, are often the most have the highest sexual desire, and that work comes from Lindsay and Sam, and Sexy First Fridays is a great place to learn specifically about the different Enneagram types and how they kind of relate to their sexuality. So if you haven't watched Sexy First Fridays with Lindsay, please definitely do that because it's fantastic. But that shame was really quite loud through the perimenopause and menopause, and actually that was impacting these type 4 women showing up fully with all the parts of themselves, and shame was kind of causing them to make themselves smaller and ignore need and ignore desire and kind of run away from that and hide that. And I think as we go through this journey, we don't know how we're gonna respond, and any response, all response, as long as it's true, is okay. But if we're making decisions based on shame, fear, or anger, we're not showing up with the full expression of ourselves. And so if that ever feels like it's driving the bus, as it were, for you in your decision making, do make sure that, as Lindsay has said, talk about it. Talk about sex. Talk about your desire levels. Talk about your needs. And if shame is feeling overwhelming for you, having that professional counselor, therapist support could be really beneficial. Just to help you kind of find your way through that. And of course that's true at any age, but I do think specifically heightened at this time where hormonal changes are more significant than we've ever experienced them before in our lives, in our journeys as females. It's the most extreme changes beyond menarche, beyond our fertile years. And so hold space for how serious and significant these shifting hormones could be, and make sure that you're talking about it. I think is the most profound thing I've kind of noticed from doing this work and having the privilege to walk with different people, different types through this period of life. But oh my gosh, the time has just flown today, Lindsay. Too good.
I know we're already at the end, actually a little bit over, but I felt like it was really important for us to talk a little bit about the relational impact, and I didn't want to miss that part, right? So we went a little bit longer than we anticipated or expected. I see that there have been a few of you along the whole time with us here. This is great to see. This is the last one that Evie and I are doing. And so like what I would say is I love doing these lives with Evie. So if there are topics or ideas or things that the two of us do that you would be really interested in hearing more about, DM us, because we would be happy to bring in other topics or areas around this, as well. And so don't hesitate to message either one of us. And I will just kind of talk a little bit about like what I have going on, and then we'll have Evie talk a little bit about what she has going on, and then we'll kind of end there. Like as she mentioned, we always have Sexy First Fridays, the first Friday of the month. Next month, we actually have another special guest because Sam is still on maternity leave. And so we have another therapist that's here in Minneapolis. Her name is Leslie Root, and she specializes in love addiction. So she's going to talk a little bit about how love addiction shows up in Enneagram types, which I'm really excited to hear a little bit more about. She does some really awesome work, and she's actually the person that introduced me to the Enneagram. So I get to kind of bring that person in, which I think is really awesome as well. I do have the communication and conflict management workshop that I did in November that is already pre-recorded, that if you are interested in that, DM me, and it comes with a workbook, and I can get you a link to purchase that. And then I am hoping to do like an intimacy workshop maybe in like March or April. So if that's something people are interested in, DM me, because I'm also kind of trying to get an idea of like how much interest there is around that. And that would probably be like another 90-minute workshop where I record it, and probably some sort of like workbook where you would also then have the recording for as long as the foreseeable future. So that's what I have going on, but let's talk a little bit about what Evie has going on as well, because she's doing some awesome things as well.
Thanks, Lindsay. Yes, so I'm hoping to launch my menopause course yeah, in the spring to really, yeah, a bit of a nod to second spring. So if that is something that is interesting you, and yeah, you're hoping to be a part of that, yes, send me a DM and I can get you signed up to the wait list. If you're not in the menopause but would like support, Enneagram informed support with your menstrual cycle, I do offer that. And then I also have a monthly membership, which isn't one-to-one support, but is yeah, a beautiful space to come and learn from, yeah, menstrual health and Enneagram professionals in a community space to help you thrive. All of that can be found linked in my bio, but of course any questions, just DM me, and I would, yeah, love to, yeah, support you in any way that I can. Lindsay, thank you so much for today. It's been, yeah, just another really fruitful conversation, and yeah, hopefully we can yeah, come up with another exciting idea.
I really enjoy like doing these with you, Evie. I think we have really good rapport, and I think what wonderful topics that we're bringing up. And so hopefully you can see us again in the future, and we'll bring some more. Again, you know, we have 5 other episodes that her and I have done together. So if you want access to that or need that, you just DM either one of us, and we will give you the links to those particular lives that are around the menstrual cycle and perimenopause. So have a wonderful Thursday and take care. And thank you for all of you that joined. Bye, Evie.
Bye, Lindsay.